let's get it recorded. There you are now, officially recorded on the platform. Oscar, do you know, we're speaking of it, I've been so excited about this discussion because it's something that it really makes you think twice about this notion of identity, especially in human behavior. And of course, we're talking about the national flags of the world. Now, you've done a very interesting project because you've kicking off a flag for the planet of Earth, which is rather interesting. And it goes beyond just the content of creating beautiful design, but it's really about the symbolism that comes behind that. But before we kick off on that, Oscar, run me through what is your understanding and your psychology behind nationalism and the flags that carry the hopes of people?
Wow, that's a really big question. It is in the day and age now when a lot of nationalist regimes are growing, and it's a lot of them being anti-democratic. It's a time where we need more global solidarity. I guess that's the background of the flag proposal that I brought forward in 2015. It is with flags, they could be so inclusive, but they could also be very exclusive. So if you see from like a national flag perspective, a lot of people, like for me, for instance, the Swedish flag, which I am a Swedish citizen, so um, it could be very inclusive and represent, for me at least, it represents a lot of democratic values and a lot of my nostalgic memories, for instance. But for a lot of people, it could be exclusion because it's sadly in Sweden, it's been hijacked by, you know, nationalists and even National Socialist group. And I guess the same kind of tendencies happen all over, all over. It's so that's why it's could mean so differently for different people, you know. And for instance, if you take the US flag, a lot of people feel very strongly about that, and with all right, of course. But if you see like the history of the US flag, it could also represent something terrible, like for the indigenous community, for example. It could mean oppression and the lack of freedom in many, where the flag for a lot of people stands for freedom. So it's very interesting of how you kind of read into the design, which is probably the reason why I love to study flags.
From your studying of flags, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about them?
Hmm, interesting. Like a misconception of flags. Hmm. Hmm. I guess it's such a close group of people that are kind of very interested in flags. I'm in a lot of those kind of forums and organizations, and I would say maybe a lot of people would think there's lots and lots of rules connected to flags, and I wouldn't really call them rules. I would call them more of customs and kind of cultural differences, because for instance, it's one rule that is kind of like a rule of thumb is that flags should be that easy so even a child could depict them. But if you see loads and loads of flags in the world that are beautiful, that don't really go to the like the tricolor, if you see like the flag of France, for instance, which is super easy to like depict and remember, and how it's in the order of the colors and everything. I would say like the flag of Brazil is super complicated to replicate, but it's a beautiful flag. Or like the flag of Saudi Arabia um, with the what's the word in English? It's there's only one prophet, and um, there's only one prophet, and Muhammad is his name, right? Oh,
Yeah, so
sorry.
with the written script across
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So, but when you, because I know when we look at flags, it carries much more than design. It carries much more than this beautiful visuals. Essentially, what it is, it's a token of what that nation's supposed to be about. But likewise, there's these hidden histories behind flags. Like I was saying off air, I was in Turkey recently, and one of the guys was telling me that the Turkey flag was born because of the blood that was pushed across the streets. And amongst this bloodshed, people saw the moon and star being reflected. One, it showcases how bad the war was. And secondly, the symbolism. But that's a great myth behind a flag. And that myth is something that a lot of people hold on to because it gives them, one, that nostalgia. Secondly, it gives them this belief in the greater part of these mystical borders that surround a mass of geographical space. Now, in this world where we place a great reliance on the integrity of leaders and everything along those lines, a flag is often used much more than just that, though. It's used for political currency. It's used for looking at your taxation. It's customs. It's for
Mm.
boats. It's having a look at where does that boat belong to, and therefore what tax is it chargeable for that, and what waters is it allowed to safely passage through. And so there's so much more that comes into this. Is a flag really more economical than it is emotively used?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like the usages of flags differ so much, I would say, and a lot of the examples you mentioned are completely correct. And it's usually we say, like regarding the flag of planet Earth that we've proposed, is it has a practical value, but also like an emotional value. So I would say like the economic value is of course very much there and present.
So run me through this incredible flag that you've designed for the planet Earth, because the way we got here, obviously on the platform, we have the big discussions, we plunge into the human experience behind people of Indian origin, but take a second look at the countries we call home. But now we're taking a second look at the world in which we call home. So when I was flicking through countries and flags of the Earth, I came across yours, and it's this really interesting project for me. I think is absolutely fascinating because what you're doing essentially is saying, we get thinking so nuclear, let's take on the bigger picture and let's all belong to the custodianship of the planet Earth. So run me through this flag, run me through the project, and what has it done in terms of changing people's attitudes towards their small borders into becoming cultural, country, worldly custodians?
Yeah. It was actually my graduation project from Beckman's College of Design back in 2015. Um, I studied something called visual communication was the name of my program, and when you're doing the graduation project, you could pretty much do like anything you would like to deep dive into. And I've loved flags ever since I was a kid, and I was like I was wondering about this, like in 1969 when we came as a human race over to the moon. Of course, the US flag was placed there, and it's, of course, I say of course because it was like a vital part of the Cold War and the space race between the US and Soviet Union. So it meant a lot of symbolic value for the US to place the flag there. But and also, of course, like you mentioned earlier in this discussion, like we have been having a historic tendency to show where we come from when we travel with boats. And when those boats came out to space, we wanted to show someone where we came from. So therefore, using the US flag and all of other different national flags that we use in space. But given that we are leaving the planet, I thought it would make sense to have a flag for Earth. It would be weird for me to be on the moon and kind of point where you come from, and you point towards the planet, but you say the US or you say Sweden, or so that was kind of like the basis of it all. And since then, when I launched it, it blew up. It absolutely blew up. And I was just like a regular college student. And from one day to another, it's just like my phone and email inbox completely exploded. It was covered by all major news sites in the world, basically, which is super humbling. But I guess it's I guess the idea of the flag is so easy to understand, so it kind of sells itself. And that's a good, I would say that's a good um, checkpoint if an idea is good or bad, if it sells itself, basically. And since then, a lot of people have like regular people, not only journalists, have contacted and kind of explain how much this meant for their shift of perspective. And a lot of people maybe have seen themselves as um, Earth citizens over them being national citizens. And they, of course, have been longing for a flag like this, and that's amazing to hear. But it's even gone to like saying, I think we're up to 6 or 7 people emailing in their tattoos of the flag, which is like, whoa, it's there now. That's it's amazing that a lot of people feel that strongly. Like in my family, to actually tattoo yourself, it's like it's there.
Yeah.
It's a big step of tattooing something in.
Because psychologically, it has such a deeper impact in the way that people look at each other. It's a flag that
Yeah,
anybody can carry without fear or favor, regardless of your gender,
yeah,
your orientation, your country of happen to be birth,
yeah,
arbitrary factors of skin color. It's something
yeah,
that should be inclusive of everyone.
yeah,
But in order for the idea to catch on, more people need to have exposure to it.
yeah.
What do you think it does for people's psychology if you were to have a flag of the planet alongside a flag of a country?
It's good that you mentioned that it is alongside country flags. It's something we really feel strongly about, in it's not really taking the place of any national flags. It's there among them in this big flag system. So what was the question again? It was what it means for people.
Yeah, well, what do you think it does in terms of shifting psychology for people?
I think it's for a lot of people, um, they don't get the experience of traveling out in space and seeing Earth from afar. And when you do that, a lot of astronauts and cosmonauts has been talking about something that's now is called the overview effect, which is basically when you come and get some perspective from the planet, you see that national borders, they don't really exist. And it's very apparent that this together, and given that we have loads and loads of challenges and also possibilities as a human race back at Earth, it's very clear that we're in this together. So it for us, running the organization, the thing that really drives us in getting the flag more exposure is that we believe very firmly that every time someone is exposed to the flag, they're also exposed to the reminder that we share the planet and that we should take care of each other and of course the planet itself. So exposure is something very crucial for the flag. And it's my background, my professional background is within advertising. So that's has always been like the foundation of how we build the organization. It's almost built like an advertising agency with the sole goal of advertising this idea, which is this flag, to give it as much exposure as possible, and like loads and loads of different initiatives that we're doing.
Why does it matter to you?
Oh, it's for me, like as soon as I got those emails from people around the world emailing me how much it meant to them, and given the momentum that the flag has, uh, I feel like it's my obligation to um, expose that flag idea for more and more people, because I know it shifts perspective around the world, which is so needed given that we're in this climate crisis. And like I said earlier, that a lot of national and anti-democratic regimes are growing. We'll have loads of conflict, sadly, with migrants moving all over borders. So we need this global solidarity and this reminder out in the world. So for me, it's like that's the thing that drives me. And it's not always done um, with a light heart. It's It's done because it's something believe deeply is needed to be done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's a passion that comes from it, and it's you're right. It comes from a level of frustration that you're
Mm,
saying you start to see the world as it is rather than how you are. And the moment you get rid of that vice, the moment then that you think, well, actually, we all deserve to have an equal life together, because that's the beauty of it, you know. And
mm,
as you rightly said, it's I think regardless if you have the opportunity to go into space or not, I think a lot of people who travel, they start to realize there's notions of borders. It's great economically speaking, you know,
mm.
because you can tax the hell out of people as soon as they come in or they go out. But in regards to the natural movement of people,
Mm,
it's a farce, because
yeah,
ultimately, as human beings, we are nomadic. We should be the ones that pick up and travel and move and maneuver.
yeah,
And the idea that you have for refugees coming through another country, holding a flag of earth,
mm,
I think that in itself has a lot of symbolism in there,
yeah,
because it means that you cannot no longer look away from them, but you have to see them as you are. They were all
of
part of the
course.
same system. What's your biggest fear? Because I know part and parcel of this idea is that frustration, but there must be a seed of fear there saying if we don't take action right now, the outcome could be devastating. Hence why you took collective action to set up
Mm.
the flag, to set up the system, to have your obviously satellite offices across the globe as well.
I have different kinds of fears. Also, as a citizen of this planet, it's a lot of fears linked to the problems that we have here, which I feel like a lot of people needs to feel the urgency of those, of course. But if we see fears linked to the flag, it would of course be that people misinterpret it and seeing in it creating more polarization than it is creating unity. That would be like a fear of mine, I'm that's just like something I'm working against, of course, because polarization is the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do here. It's I just hope this idea brings people together more than it brings up like a feisty discussion that brings us apart. Because I don't want to bring yet another thing that polarizes us. But I believe as soon as people are exposed to the idea, people tend to support it because it isn't really we try to keep it as objective as possible. It isn't really political in any way. It's if you see it from like a strict flag practical usage standpoint, it is a part of a flag system where you could see like cities have flags, municipalities have flags, states have flags, national or nations have flags. Sometimes those nations are cooperating in an organization that has flags. If you take like one step over, planets should have flags, and we're just in the on the brink of inhabiting other planets, and that's is kind of like the question that we're asking is shouldn't planet have flags then? So hopefully people could see it from a practical standpoint also, not only um, like the emotional value, which of course we believe is great.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely. It is such a remarkable discussion for me personally, because it's a natural flow, isn't it? Is the reality is you think, one, why was this not there before? I suppose with every great idea, you kind of have that idea that comes in. Well, why has nobody done this before? It's so simple, yet it's so powerful. And the other part of it is saying, well, actually, you know, does it now take the power away from just your ordinary politician and bring it back into the hands of the people? And maybe
Yeah,
that could just be me at 6 a.m. in the morning, rattling off my brain. But the reality is,
yeah.
I think that there's something there along those lines, because it re-challenges and it refrags the way that society is built on. You know, Oscar, I think for me, the work that you do is absolutely fascinating. People want to find out more. Where do they go?
So if you want to read some more about the flag, our website is flagofplanetearth.com. And we're always looking for people to support us and volunteering their time or volunteering their skill sets in any way. We're very open as an organization. And right now we are 6 people working in the US. We have a sister organization with 4 or 5 people in Amsterdam, and we have some volunteers around the world. So we're really looking to expand more and getting people involved around the world. It's growing rapidly. But it is also amazing. Like you have to embrace that quick movement forward. It's scary, of course, but it's
Oscar,
wonderful.
it's sounding more and more like a cult. I think we better end the conversation there. Otherwise, I'll be having a certain flagged hat. No, but I think it's, if people want to find out more, what we'll do, we'll put a link on your bio so people
Yeah.
can discover more about the idea, the concept. Because again, it's not just about the practical output of having a
Mm,
beautifully designed function. It's saying psychologically, can we get to the
mm,
space where we no longer see borders, but we see each other? And the
mm,
moment we're there, I think we start to do a lot of goodness in the world, because we start to get rid of a lot of hate that has been generated by political borders and the flags that are associated for that. And more
mm.
importantly, we start to share resources, which I think the world and the planet needs more now than ever.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like the global solidarity is something we need more of in the world. I feel that very strongly. And it's kind of like how we view other humans, but also how we view the planet and have some more respect for it.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.